With pleasure.
I'm sorry. जो भी करना है करो, अब मैं तुमसे मत पूछ।
क्या करूं? क्या जानता रे? They don't want it to be on.
They just want you to look at the Chantara, not to hear anything about it. Welcome everyone to Chand Phool, the Design Challenge. It is my very great pleasure to introduce to you Professor Shehnaz Ismail, who arrived this morning despite PIA making it very difficult for her. And we're very glad that she is here. She is one of the founders and the Dean Faculty of Design at the Indus Valley School of Art and Architecture in Karachi. Professor Ismail holds degrees from the National College of Arts and the Hornsey College of Arts and Crafts in London in textile design. Professor Ismail has spent the majority of her working life in academics, in academia, including 13 years in secondary education. Since the inception of Indus Valley School, she has led the textile design department, resulting in her students who have become extremely famous all over the country. She is actively involved in craft revival and has developed and led many trainings and design intervention programs for various non-profit organizations across Pakistan. Professor Ismail has undertaken consultancies over the years in textile design and interior furnishings. The most recent ones have been for the Shigar Fort residence and the Khaplu Palace residence in Skardu, that have been conserved and restored under the aegis of the R. Khan Trust for Culture. Both are UNESCO award-winning projects. Professor Ismail has also completed textile commissions for other organizations, including the presidency in Islamabad as well as the Jinnah International Airport in Karachi. Her latest work was commissioned by Alchemy, Bradford Museums and Galleries in 2012, titled Silk, Bradford and the Subcontinent. In recognition of her academic achievements and professional expertise, Professor Ismail was made an associate of the National College of Arts, Lahore, and has been awarded the President's Pride of Performance for work in visual art and education in the year 2014. Welcome.
Thank you, Naji, for that very generous introduction. And I feel really humbled because I've got my teacher and my mentor sitting right here, Salima Hashmi. Our friendship and our relationship goes back a long way to the National College of Arts when I was a naive student and she was a glorious teacher. All the wonderful friends, and very happy to be in Lahore as always, despite PIA's fuel leakage and all kinds of threats. But thank you everybody, and I hope you will enjoy what we have to learn today and what we have to see today, which is Ambar Sami's work. Ambar.
I would like to now introduce Ambar Sami to those of you who are not familiar with her work. Ambar is a graduate of the Parsons School of Design in New York, where she trained in interior design in the 90s. After graduation, she worked with the Rockwell Group, an international hospitality design firm, for the very first W Hotel in Manhattan, and undertook several other commercial projects, including the interior of the Nobu restaurant as well as residential assignments in Soho. She returned to Pakistan in 2002 and established her design studio in Lahore, from where she began her practice in interior design, concurrent with teaching design at BNU, and she also conducted workshops at the Indus Valley School of Art in Karachi. In 2005, she established a jewelry design practice, which is the genesis of the hugely successful line Amber Sami handcrafted jewelry. Her work has been shown several times in Karachi, Islamabad, Lahore, Delhi, and in Jaipur. The Koel Gallery, where she has regularly exhibited, represents her, and she recently held an exhibition at the Saskia Fernando Gallery in Colombo. So what we are going to do now is to show you a short film just to get you into the mood of this discussion, and just it's a teaser to see how you respond to the images and what is to follow. Okay.
No, they're connected to the speaker.
Okay, so before I come to Amber, I really would like to start with asking. I don't know why they don't have the lights on. Light laga de bhai. Okay, we'll just continue to talk in that case without the lights. We know that this tradition of making jewelry is a living tradition. You have been called a revivalist, Amber, but I contest that term because this is a living tradition. And when I was bringing Shehnaz over to Alhambra, we were talking about this. So I'm going to ask her this question, and then I'm going to see what your response is as well. How do you respond to a person, a designer such as Amber, being called a revivalist, as opposed to an innovator, and the fact that jewelry is a living tradition and a very, very rich living tradition in our region?
Jewelry, of course, is a living tradition, has been for thousands of years, and will continue to do so. I would call Amber an innovator, not a revivalist. And I would, because I feel that she has intervened with this age-old craft. But extremely important for me is that silver jewelry, which is still made in the rural areas. There are still shops in villages, smaller and bigger, but has completely died down. I don't know, Karachi does not have a single shop where you can go and buy silver jewelry of any kind of, of a standard or a design aesthetic. I don't know about Lahore anymore, but Lahore used to have a very vibrant silver bazaar. I don't think that is true anymore, except for odds and ends. So I really want to commend Amber firstly on bringing this craft to the urban context and introducing the use of silver and kundan all over again. I don't know what the audience will have to say to me about the affordability of it, but yes, it is. It will remain a niche market. It will highly a high sense of aesthetics, craftsmanship. Good craftsmanship does involve time, patience, labor, and passion. And all that accumulates into another entity. So, Amber, what I'm very interested in asking you is that you work with craftspersons in Bahawalpur.
That's right.
And these craftspersons, as I asked you earlier, are of Punjabi tradition.
Right.
They are not somebody who came from either Persia or etc. as in other crafts. How did they take to this design sensibility that you brought to them? Because this is very, very, very different from what they were used to doing. Am I right in saying that?
Absolutely.
So can you respond to that?
Well, it was very difficult. I had just returned from New York after many, many years and ran this design firm in interior architecture and then switched to jewelry. And one of my first memories of sitting with this karigar is that he's like, क्या कह रही हैं आप? क्या कह रही हैं आप? इसको jewelry कहते हैं. The jhalar and the dangles, the way they are in the bazaars, that's what they're familiar with. So slowly I said कि हम एक नया किस्म का काम करेंगे. और ये मैं drawings बनाऊंगी और आपने बिल्कुल वो follow करना है. So that went on for the first few years. And slowly, when the pieces started coming beautiful, that's when he was absolutely convinced that, okay, यहाँ कोई मजे की चीज़ हो रही है, I'll follow you.
Okay.
So. There was a lot of mutual respect between us. It was a lot of inspiring him, being a muse for him also, all those things. And we worked as a team together on this.
But my experience with craftspersons does teach you humility,
Yes.
does teach you respect, and does teach you that it has to be a partnership. It cannot be a superior and another level. So it has to be a mutual exchange at the same level. But as we can see that you have developed, and it's now you have reached a level which is very successful. But tell me also that the symbology that you use and the Chantara, and then very interestingly there are things from your environment. There are the roses and the nargis and the motias and this. So how does that happen? Because the source of inspiration in design is extremely important, and I would like to ask you that, Amber.
I think it's the flowers that I have shown, the motia and the nargis. They are the most beautiful flowers of our region. Summer mein motia and the winter flower is nargis, which is really gorgeous. And then the roses, which are grown in Pattoki. They are so beautiful. But still, for all my life, I think it has to do with my parents and the gardens they kept and the flowers they grew. It comes really from there. And I think that upon my return to Pakistan, I looked at these two flowers all over again. I had seen all the irises and all the fancy flowers in the world, but it really boiled down to these two all over again. And so the source is my childhood and my parents' garden. The flowers Ammi and Abbu grew till date.
That's
So,
very, very special. Have you shared this with your karigars? The story of your childhood and the inspiration which is coming from there.
No, actually each time we meet I am so highly strung about design and other matters that that's the last thing I would be talking about. It'll change the pitch, but I think now we've come to a point that one can talk about childhood with them. It's been a long journey with them also by now,
Yeah.
9 years.
And what kind of input do they give to your work, to your design, if any?
Well, it's rare, but because what I'm following is a very uncomplicated invention within Kundan. It's very rare that they can tell me something which in the beginning, in the first year of working with them, I picked up the basic rules. Since then, it's the same. It's just getting more and more complex, but not really.
Do they suggest a change in your design process?
No, they just
They
follow.
don't participate in that.
Not anymore. They are they love those designs, the uniqueness of things I end up doing, putting a kite under a bird with a moti in the bird's mouth, and all these. They're open to anything that comes their way.
Amber, I'd like to take you back a little bit to some of your original sources of inspiration. And you showed us maps of Hyderabad and these lovely paintings by Ravi Verma. And can you just go back in time a little bit and say how these inspired you and what the connection is then between Hyderabad and Bahawalpur?
Wow. Okay. When I embarked upon this journey of a craft and it ended up being jewelry, I researched the subcontinental jewelry of the various regions and started off with Jaipur in Rajasthan. But shortly after that, I discovered Hyderabad Dakkan and the books that have been published on the jewels of the Nizams. And they really got my fancy. They completely engulfed me, the beauty of it. It all started from the books and studying those designs. And then my subsequent trips to Hyderabad, which, and the aesthetic of Hyderabad Dakkan, from food to architecture to the clothes, to the jewelry, to the mannerisms, to everything about Hyderabad. And then, of course, I was fixated on the surface of the Nizam of Hyderabad with the famous Chantara with a huge diamond cut in the middle. And that just kept to me, and I thought that, oh my God, trust the Nizam of Hyderabad to have used the most beautiful Chantara in the world. You could never be better than that, those aesthetics. And so it just became a source between that and the flowers and all the aesthetics that all fed into.
And Bahawalpur, how did Bahawalpur happen?
Well, Bahawalpur is the region within Pakistan today which inherited the same craft of kundan making as Jaipur. In fact, when I visited Jaipur, it was spoken that they spoke of Hyderabad very nostalgically of Bahawalpur, that you still have those master craftsmen making the complicated enamel designs, and I said no longer, that's no more there. There's hardly any. So Bahawalpur had the tradition, and I found a few karigars who are now trained to work at that level of,
So let's start by looking at the evolution of this Chand Phool, the first intervention, your design of the Chand Phool.
Okay.
And can you just go through that so that we all see what sort of steps you took,
Okay.
and how it came about?
All right, so we'll start with that. We need a few lights less on the stage, huh? Okay. So here's the Nizam of Hyderabad surfage that he used to wear, and it's a famous iconic symbol, in particular this one.
Ye light ban kar dein, please.
Then I saw Chantaras everywhere. This is the Noor Mahal, where all the windows are etched with Nawab of Bahawalpur's logo. And then the constant motia flowers that I indulge in my space, bring them over, string them, hang them on lampshades, study them, more motia, nargis. And now we are going towards a hybridity of these two flowers, which ended up making the Chand Phool. So here's the time when I'm studying the proportions of the hybridity of the two flowers with a big center like the nargis, and adjusting the petals. The dotted lines show you the expanding the width of it. Lots of experimentation, lots of drawings led me to then come out with this proportion. Here's my scale chart. Then here's some work going on with them being finished, with the variations on the theme of the Chand Phool. Variations on the theme of a Chand Phool. The center one, as you can see, is the baguette. That's where I am inspired constantly by Art Deco, and so that falls in all the time in my Gultan work. This one, playing with the Ganga Jamni concept over here within the Chand Phool. Again. And then using it, inserting it in necklaces and chokers, the same motif as the Chand Phool surrounding the labradorite stone here. More variations of the baguettes, and that's it.
Thank you. So Shehnaz, you would like to ask a question about this evolution.
Well, right from there, I was, because there is a variety of stones that you use, Amber, so where do you source your stones from, or how do you source them? How do you decide that this is what I'm going to do for my next collection?
Well, the stones are, it's something that I'm constantly looking for. It may be a holiday, just to travel to any place that I go to, and I'm looking out for interesting things that I see, and I just collect them from everywhere, from Sadar Bazaar in Karachi to Sri Lanka to Jaipur, Delhi, wherever I go, I'm looking for something that I could finish my work with, which would be a little unusual. Once I was looking for the color red, a real red, and there was a kabaria who was selling broken stoplights, the traffic light. And it was made in the Czech Republic in the 60s, and then it had broken, and I just saw this big chunk of the reddest red ever, which was so hard to cut, almost like lead crystal or something. But we ended, and when you cut it to the thinnest sliver, because for kundan setting you need the stone to be cut like a sliver, and for it to still retain the color is the whole challenge. But this red was as red as the big red rock. The sliver was as red.
Well, that is true design intervention, really, you know. And you brought it from the Czech Republic up via the Karachi Kabadia
into Kundan,
Bahawalpur and Lahore. Tell me, that's very interesting when you mention that you also buy them from the Kabadia, for example. So what kind of sources do you find in Pakistan which you think would be worthwhile or will bring a treasure trove to you?
I'm sorry, which...
what I mean is, for example, where would you go in Lahore to source this kind of surprising element, for example?
You know, unfortunately, Lahore has been the most difficult place to source interesting material for me. Because the mother of pearl and the seashells don't make it to Lahore, which I love using, and in unusual shades. Our stone market in Lahore has gone completely synthetic and all Chinese. So either it's the mountains or it's Karachi in Pakistan.
Interesting. And in Karachi, because it's such a big, huge city, that where do you find it from the Pathan vendors who sell rings with stones, or do you find it in Itwar Bazaar, or where?
This is the southern near the Maimun Masjid. In that area you have all the jewelers, and there are Pathans there, lots of them, and then there are locals there, and all of them deal in it.
I'm asking this question because I think that the younger generation must develop this will to explore and just walk the streets. I know that people are going to say it's dangerous, it's not safe. Somebody asked me, "Acha, tum taxi mein aayi ho? Airport so to dar nahi laga ya is it safe?" It's okay, you know, that's what life is. But what I am saying is that don't let the situation hold you hostage, because there is a huge education in visual art available to you right in your city, and you know, Amber is proof of that. So
yes, I think that Amber has been sourcing stones and other materials from other places as well. But I would like to ask you more about your own interventions in terms of design. I keep bringing you back to that, because you source the stones, you are working with certain craftsmen, you use your sketchbook and your own sensibility, your apart from just your design sensibility, but your training as a designer. And that is quite evident, because everything for you does begin, there is an inspiration, a source of inspiration, and then it comes onto the drawing board.
Yes.
And that's where the whole thing actually begins, and you decide on what decisions you're going to take. But perhaps you might like to show us some more work and take us through the steps that you take in terms of actually intervening and of creation of the design. And perhaps something in which you have been working with your craftsmen as well.
Okay, I could do a random few pieces and show you Roman innovation. Right, so for example, we need the lights less. Okay. So for example, my forever inspiration, that one of the pieces that inspire me in jewelry is a champakali. And here we have a typically very, very beautiful South Indian champakali. And I'll show you my journey of exploring and playing with this thought in the way I look at things. So here's an inspiration how I get driven. Here's a beautiful stone that I once found. It's kyanite. You rarely find it in a shape and size like this. It's a huge one. And into this champakali then. So it started with that, gold one, the thought, and I've translated it into covering it and finishing it in glass. Here are some greens that always inspire me from leaves. Love pan ka pata, and then into a green. So that's my innovation from being inspired by a traditional classic piece into a champakali. And here are these charms that I've been experimenting with since the last couple of years. And here's the take on it. Playing more with charms and turning it into a har and using all those, but with a contemporary feel maybe. It wasn't intended, I just go with the flow and they end up being what they are. I found these slivers of tourmalines, and all I did was, that's how I set them. This is the way I found them. I didn't cut them like that. They were sold to me like that. All I did was to just frame them. That's it. So that they are contained in the shape I got them. So that the piece completely instructed and called the shots on the design, not me really. So you listen really to the stones too. And here's the necklace ready. Here's a very famous, beautiful spinels in a Mysore har. So I started playing. This is way at the beginning. This is like the first year, my first collection ever. And so here's for a everyday contemporary person to be able to wear the same Mysore flower with the black onyx and white kundan going around it and a black onyx drop. Roses forever inspire me. And here's a rosette. I did these a few years ago. So there was a series of rosettes that came out. These are kadas with these rosettes, buttons, tops. And these I shot in Jaipur once at the Diggy Palace, I think, these totas. And so they immediately translated into earrings. And then into ponchis, which are bracelets and chains with all the charms. These are cufflinks, that's a pendant. Here's, I play with a lot of cuts the way I finish the stone. And this photograph is being shot at this angle so you can see how I do the bulbous cut of the stones to give it a glint, which is a little unusual, this sort of a glint and cut for kundan. That's playing more with the charms. Here are a set of buttons. The kite appears in February this year because I'm very nostalgic for Basant. Again, that's and playing with just some it's a bracelet. Then the charms go on to the ponchis, strung on dhaga. The old world way of putting it together is exactly the way I have done that. But the way the charms are, they have a very rectangular, modern feel to them, and yet when you look at the design, it's pretty ancient. That's a lot of specification drawings in Urdu for my karigar, quick sketches for the charm har, more. This one has accents of Art Deco, and the frame down below, this rectangular frame, with black onyx used in it in particular, and then just playing with chains. That's it.
Yes, certainly. But so all of this is hugely popular. And what is it that makes it popular, do you think? Shehnaz, perhaps I ought to ask you this question. What do you think really makes this kind of jewelry appealing to people?
I think it's a very high level of aesthetics, but it's also because of the color that she uses and the variety of stones. It has a contemporary feel, and like she said, she's veering towards Art Deco now. You know, things happen in the process, and I think that is what appeals. दूसरी बात ये है कि our younger generation is dressed very casually. It's a different mode of dressing. But the moment you team up a kurti and jeans with one of these ladies, the malas, and it just, you're dressed up to go out on the town. So I think because they're very wearable, that is what appeals to them, because it's not really that you're going into this sentimental kind of a thing or into tradition. ऐसी कोई बात नहीं है, realistically speaking, because and I think Amber's customers, there's a huge younger generation following her, and it is, and she's young herself, so it's just that it just dresses up the most casual of attires, and I feel that's why it's so successful. And also I don't think it will ever go out of fashion. It will never go out of fashion. This kind of, the imagery, the local imagery, which is very important, put into the context, stone from Jaipur, stone from Sri Lanka, wherever, then set by the craftsman, Bahawalpur. I think that's very, very, very special. Have I answered your question? No. I just needed to ask Amber that she's shown a lot in India. And I want to know what the reaction from that audience is, or those buyers is. As Pakistanis, we just need to know that when you show internationally, what is the reaction? Especially to something which is, there are no boundaries for this. It's just so porous that it's the whole subcontinent. It's the same imagery. So what is the reaction?
They love it. They say that we have never seen this sort of kundan. How are you doing it? Where is the lark in it? You're not using lark. And they say that there's a modernity about it. And when we get kundan in India, it's very, very traditional. What are you doing to it? How are you making it? And I was really tense and really very, very conscious the first time I showed my collection in Jaipur. My legs were shaking. I was going to say that it's like bringing coals to Newcastle. When they looked at it, it was a sellout. And Amrpali ended up asking me to train one of their karkhanas on this kind of kundan.
Really? And what fantastic. That's really well done.
And then it turned out that they were BJP politicians, and they said that, can we work a little under the table? We'll sponsor you for a visit visa. And I said, no way.
So, well, didn't you ask them to have an exchange of the artisans, and if they could come and work with your chaps in Bahawalpur?
Well, the political air is so unfriendly that this was never going to be possible. But they said that as much as you make, we'd like to just be buyers from you.
Yeah, but it's nice to dream, huh?
Yes.
It's nice to dream and sort of say, kya pata kisi din koi exchange hoga artisans.
I remember as a child I would hit Jaipur, and the only place I want to blow up my pocket money was Amrpali. They used to be so good 20 years ago, more than that. And so I was very honored to hear them say that. I mean, they're 7.
And did they feel that this, apart from the technical innovation, that there was innovation in any other innovation that you were doing which surprised them or pleased them?
Yes, they said that the reappearance of Chand Taras, they said it's as much our heritage as it's yours.
Absolutely.
And they said you've brought a big dose of that, and that has really moved us. Because you don't see that anymore.
Also, Amber, I think that, all the folk elements that you are actually bringing in as part of the design is a very interesting intervention. Because you have, your little kites, your little Panchtan Park, your little pan, just the little chiriya, and all of these put together, the way that you arrange them together. So, are you also looking at other traditional forms of jewelry, or how does all of this happen? I mean, I know that you're interested in all these forms, but to actually string them together, to put them together.
It's the narrative. That is the narrative itself. And it goes on multiplying itself.
So it's a very rich cultural narrative.
That's right.
Visual narrative.
Absolutely.
So what we're going to do is we're going to show you another short film before we open this to the floor.
Okay.
May we have the lights off, please?
Thank you, Kamna.
So these are more finished pieces. All of them are.
What your clientele base is like.
All kinds of people, all age groups, a 2-year-old baby to any age, modern people who wear more cultural and more ethnic, हमारी अपनी चीजें, all kinds of people, foreigners, any taste, it just.
And do they request you to use any particular? Have you had any request for a particular kind of imagery? No.
They
They're
say
happy with it.
they always feel it's so hard for them to decide with the range that I do, because I'm constantly working with so much limited edition work. And there's so many variations on a theme that they just go crazy selecting what they want in that.
How limited is your limited edition?
One off.
Really?
Yes, like the Golconda Tourmaline Har.
Yes.
A one-off. There are many, yeah.
And your Chand Balas and these are
These are I try and not exceed more than about 10 finishes in a season.
You know, it's wonderful to travel in now, because now I only carry Ambarsani jewelry with me when I travel.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes. But it's wonderful. It's wonderful to see our tradition in a contemporarized context. It's very heartening to see that there is somebody who's putting in this passionate work with the crafts persons, and that they are responding to it positively. Are their children then interested in carrying on the craft?
Well, their children, now there are, but when I started off with them a decade ago, at that time these people had just lost their children to dreaming about running video stores and cell phone stores and putting up a chai ka thela. The enamelist left and put on a chai ka thela. So a few of them have come back. But really there is so much work to be done in craft. It's a gold mine. They're all sitting there with the most beautiful skills. And there should be just more people going there, not just for jewelry, for every craft that we have in Pakistan.
Well, you're communicating with them over WhatsApp these days.
That's right.
Rather interesting.
Yes, I get video films of procedures and processes and stills all the time. It's brilliant.
But that's wonderful.
And that's really reduced my trips to the village. So,
thank you. Right, are there any questions? Ghazala, please.
Well, what I'm very impressed with is her artistry in the way she has presented.
Given this presentation, it is beautiful, brilliant. I love her.
oh. Thank you, Ghazala.
Thank you.
Means a lot.
No question, just a comment. I came across Amber 6 years back,
About 6-7 years ago.
6-7 years back. She had just begun, और मैं आज खास काम में पहन के आई हूँ जो अंबर के काम में थे. So I took them from Amber, and I think since then it's been a great relationship.
Yes.
And have total confidence, and she's brilliant.
Thank you, Nurjan.
Well, I'll immediately second that. I have also found it very amusing, the Chand and the Tara.
Yeah.
At the Delhi Art Fair like 4 years ago, I was wearing my pair. And of course, everybody said, Acha, so you have to tell everybody that you're a Pakistani.
But also another anecdote, at the Dubai Art Fair a few years ago, there were about 6 of us wearing the same earrings.
I would really like one of the younger ones to participate in this question-answer session. I need that reaction. Yes.
So, being a man, I don't know if I'm qualified for any comments
Wonderful
or not.
to be a man in jewelry.
But I grew up in a family where Kundan was going quite a bit. When I got some jewelry for my wife, I did not realize what went behind the scenes to this art. And as I was looking at this presentation, and then you guys said that's more innovation than revivalist, and I'm thinking to myself, the art was all gone then. And like I had not seen the same Kundan come through down other than as a legacy. So I'm thinking, as I'm looking at your presentation, that it was probably a revivalist innovator rather than just one of each.
But where Amber is working at the moment, उस tradition में कुंदन की technique नहीं थी. Jewelry तो बहुत थी, मगर कुंदन की technique नहीं थी. That is the difference that we're talking about. Because कुंदन was restricted to only certain areas. It was practiced in the technique. For example, Jaipur and Hyderabad, Dakkan, जो आपको map पे दिखाया था, those are very, very popular areas for Kundan, and hence the difference between innovation and revivalism.
Sorry, just can I send me Kundan?
In silver.
In silver.
In Sindh.
Yes.
In Sindh,
Yes.
till recently, Kundan was done, which was flat, in fact quite similar to Amber's. Amber, you've seen some of the old stuff.
Tapu and I were talking about this just yesterday.
Acha. So I'm just trying to just correct that information.
But it's very possible that it was not made in Sindh.
No, very much made in
But it
Sindh.
was made in
In
Sindh.
fact, in Hyderabad, they used to have craftsmen, also in Hala, and sadly it's all finished. But Sindh was very rich in making kundan.
Yeah, but
jewelry.
not
with silver. With
Not in
silver.
our sort of the last 4 decades or 5 decades में तो कोई कारीगर ऐसा नहीं रहा है. उससे पहले जरूर हुए होंगे और
मेरे ख्याल से 20 साल पहले तक थे. You know what, the jewelry that was being sold, which is about 20 to 30 years by Kishan and all, they carried a lot of kundan. And somebody should actually research on the actual dates, but it was
a
very
lot
rich.
of it is inherited also.
Yes.
Yes.
I just had a question. First of all, that Amber is working out of Bahawalpur, and Bahawalpur has been a center for kundan. It has been an old center for kundan. And in fact, I have seen it myself, not in Bahawalpur, but I have seen Bahawalpuri kundan. What I am interested to ask her is whether the technique is the same and why it has not come back into the mainstream as gold kundan, which is very important also, because that is a different technique, as she herself has claimed, that what she's doing is different from the traditional kundan. So where is the difference and why has that revival not taken place?
The difference is direct setting versus lark. That is the real difference, actually. In this, it's really simple. You just get the shell ready, and there's the direct setting of stones within it. You don't back it with lark, which is generally a combination of wax and surma, and many other variations on that. Binds it together, and that whole idea, gorgeous it may be in the masterpieces I've seen, for the price and for the availability to the people, the way I make it, I wanted it to be the weight of silver. I wanted my pieces to be the weight of silver and nothing else but silver, and the purest form of silver, so that in years from now it will be of value too. It already is becoming.
Why did they do the laughter in those times?
To bind the stones in it in a secure way, because remember, it was really precious stones that used to go into kundan making, not glass back in history. So to have the diamonds secure and to have the rubies secure, you have that sticky, hard stuff that kind of gives it strength, so that even if it falls, they were not to crack. It gives it cushioning, it gives it binding, it gives it strength.
There's a question here.
With this new technique, because kundan is very delicate, purana, gold ka. So how durable do you think your jewelry will be? If young people are wearing it, and
Well, I have my people who buy from me take it to beach holidays, and it ends up being oxidized, which even pure gold gets oxidized. It rarely comes back to me for repolishing. It only gets better when it's more oxidized. Sometimes it breaks, sometimes you drop it. I sometimes shower with these ponchis on. I really don't care. I know I'll get them fixed very quickly, but it's rare that they would fall and they'll lose their strength. Sometimes stones break, very rare. But I hardly have repairs coming to me.
Please allow a man to ask a question. Please. This way.
Okay,
Thank you very much. Just quick one thing. Are you making some plans to transfer this technique to upcoming generations as a revivalist, because you're doing a great job, great work? Any plan, anything going on so that this technique should be transferred somewhere?
Well, I am not at that stage yet. I think I'm going to be there soon. I've been toying with this whole idea myself, and 9 years is really nothing. I meet a lot of 7th-generation jewelers, and I look at them, so give me a little time. 9 years isn't much. Getting there.
Okay, Imrana, the last question.
This is not a question.
Okay, comment. खड़े होके बोल दो.
This is not a question and it's not a comment. So, it is a tribute, and it's a tribute to Verambar, of course, Lajawab dost, Lajawab artist. Lajawab inside and out, beauty of heart and soul and what she makes. But the tribute today is for her, but the real tribute I want to make is to Auntie and Uncle, her parents, who are sitting. I've known Uncle not very long, but it seems like many lifetimes, and I've seen किस शफकत और प्यार और the garden that Uncle spoke about, and I've seen Uncle delivering flowers in pots. Chrysanthemums एक दफा मैंने देखा था आ रहे थे इनके पास, and I think the way that they have brought up these beautiful girls, Rano is here, her sister, it was brilliant, and each one of them I would like to pay them a very, very special tribute for allowing your girls to blossom and to bloom and to be individuals in their own way.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, all of you, making your time here. It's wonderful. Thank you, Shehnaz, for coming.